Hi everyone, I'm Joe Santacroce, Assistant Director of the Office of Career Services at Salem State University, and welcome to our Career Connection series, where we bring in career experts to talk about different career topics. Today's topic is going to be around virtual interviewing, and our first guest is John Rocho. John is a co-founder and principal of John Galt Staffing, one of the top technical recruiting firms in the country, which has also been a recipient of multiple Best Places to Work awards. In addition to the firm's experience preparing technical candidates to interview with their nationwide clients remotely, John oversees the hiring of sales and recruiting talent for his company. John, thank you so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Joe. It's great to be here for you and the Salem State community.
Awesome. So our first question is this. What advice can you give our students around the virtual interviewing experience? And really, are there differences as compared to like the in-person face-to-face interview?
That's a great question. It actually is one that I'm pretty much asked pretty often, actually. And because this is new to everybody, right? And so everyone's trying to figure out how to adjust. As we were. Turns out that close to half of our incoming hires that are starting this month have had to go through the remote interviewing process. And even a handful of them have never been in my office before. So it's definitely a new and different world, right? And those are obviously the interviews that went well because, we ended up hiring them. You learn a lot though, but by what works, by finding out what doesn't work. And certainly I've had my share of those that didn't work. If I could share for your audience, maybe the number one kind of like the top mistake that I've seen that's really big enough, like enough to cost a person a job, right? It would be this. It's going into a remote interview as if like too casual, as if it's not a real interview, as if it's not quite the same as like being in person. And we can kind of see how it evolves that way. So I think if you go through the rigmarole of kind of getting dressed for an interview and driving down and, finding a parking space and then walking into an office that you've never been in before, you're just kind of on high alert. But when you do the remote interview, let's face it, it's as easy as like turning on a TV show. And that's what people do. And this is a trap that you'll find with phone screens or phone interviews. But now all we've done is added the whole kind of visual dimension now with these remote interviews. So Joe, where it really kind of becomes like pretty evident to me as the interviewer on some of these is when someone walks in and they're not dressed professionally. And when I say walk in virtually, right? So but they're not dressed as if they would have been here at my office. And as it's kind of timeless advice that career services gives, like a first impression is a lasting impression, and you're behind the 8 ball and you better kind of hit it out of the park on the rest of the interview. But I can tell you from what I've seen of candidates, they probably won't. It's because it's insidious. There's kind of a snowball effect. The second they weren't preparing to that level and just in their appearance, it seeps down into the rest of their demeanor. Instead of maybe even leaning forward and being alert, they start reclining, which is not really a good look. They get kind of too casual. They stop actively listening. So if there's any kind of, I'd say like move the needle takeaway, it would be this. If you're interviewing, just because you're home doesn't mean that you're really home, right? I think it's hard to address the remote interviewing and how it's different without addressing the elephant in the room, which is technology. And the technology is a wild card. So kind of, again, the top thing that we would see is that person who kind of freezes, you get cut off a little bit, so that's not enough. It doesn't get held against you, but it is enough to rattle you. It's enough to throw you off and the interviewer off of their rhythm, right? And so I think one of the ways to just prevent that is just always making sure you've got a good connection. So geeky stuff here, which is a hard cable, a hard wire is the best connection to be direct, have your computer connected to the internet. If you have to be wireless, be as close to the router as possible for a strong signal. And if possible, ask everyone else in the household to stay offline during that time so you're not having bandwidth issues. Kind of other things like, obvious things like just have a plain background. If you have to don't have a distracting one. I wanted to use your beautiful campus. As you can see here,
thank you.
It's your strength.
Yeah.
Definitely showcase your campus,
Absolutely.
So there's that. Having your laptop or computer is kind of as level with your face instead of down on the floor. I've had people who've interviewed with me whose batteries have run out and then they can't find the plug. And then certainly remember this is that the microphone picks everything up. So if you're outside, a little wind is a big distraction. So don't be outside. If you're inside, keep those windows shut. Otherwise, you're going to be drowned out by every motorcycle that drives by every lawnmower, right? And then finally, like what I was saying, the microphone hears everything, including you. So when you're struggling to kind of get your camera going and you start kind of F-bombing yourself, what's going on here? You know what? We're usually there just kind of listening to you fumble around. So always assume that the camera and the microphone is on. I guess the last thing I would say, just kind of parting words on this, it's like this is uncharted waters for everybody. So don't beat yourself up too much, right? So if you're you don't have a great place now and everyone's got a home office, you might have to do this from the kitchen. Just apologize. Hey, I'm sorry, this is where I get the strongest signal. I hope you don't mind. Guess what? We don't mind. If the dog barks, guess what? That happens, right? So just apologize, smile, and roll with it. Because chances are you're going to have to flow with it on my end too. I've certainly had my daughter walk in on her share of lunch and learns that I've been teaching, right? So it's one of those things where we just kind of have to go with the flow because we're all in this together.
Absolutely. Last question for you. Just want to get your take on the entire virtual interview experience itself. What are your thoughts on it? Do you like it? Do you not like it? Challenges, right?
Joe, to put it succinctly, I like it better than one thing and I like it worse than another thing, right? So I like it better than phone screens. As human beings, we're visual and we need those visual cues. We need that kind of feedback, right? Of how are you receiving my answers and how are you delivering this question? And then also, I think that there's also just that sensory feedback is what we need to kind of sense the environment around us and again, find a connection with the person that you're talking to. Let them see your enthusiasm. So I think that in that way, I like it much better than the phone screen. I don't like it as much as in person, because I still want the opportunity to show you around my office, to introduce you to my coworkers, to have you sit in my lobby and people are friendly and like you get to see who would be your potential coworkers. You get a sense for the culture that you otherwise might not be able to. And so I think in that way, it's not as good, but I'm getting used to it as we're all going to have to get used to this. It turns out it's a very efficient tool. So these remote interviewing skills that we're all learning probably going to end up being for the long haul.
For sure. John, thank you so much for your time today. We truly appreciate it. And hopefully we'll have you back again as a guest on a future episode.
Great to be here. Good luck, Vikings.
Thank you. Take care. Thanks to John for his time and his expertise this afternoon. We really appreciate it. Next, we're going to go to Paul Riley. Paul currently serves as a regional recruitment manager at City Year, which is an organization that recruits, trains, and places diverse teams of AmeriCorps members in systematically under-resourced schools across the country to provide support to students, classrooms, and the whole school itself. Paul, thanks so much for being here today. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure, Joe. Thanks for having me.
Of course. So our first question is this. What advice would you give students who are embarking now on this virtual interview experience? And are there differences between a virtual interview and the face-to-face in-person interview?
Yeah, Joe, that's a great question. I think definitely some differences, right? Obviously, you're not going to be physically proximate to the people you're interviewing, not showing up in the office or the space to get a sense of what that feels like. But I definitely recommend still treating it as much as you can like that regular interview, right? So do the same things you would do. Practice those confidence poses, dress up, or wear the clothes you would wear to an in-person interview. I think do the things that would help you get in a positive mindset to kind of put your best foot forward. Use a virtual background like this, especially if you have some distractions like I do in the background with bookcases and everything, or use a blank wall if that's what you have. I think also, right, there's a challenge in body language. You don't have the ability to read that as effectively, but that's on both sides, interviewer and interviewee. But there's some other benefits, right? That you're going to be in a much more comfortable space, typically, right? Your home, your room. So use that again to your advantage. You don't have to worry about, driving, finding parking, getting there on time, taking public transportation and relying on that. There's a lot more, I think, comfort in being able to do this virtually. But again, do everything you can to set yourself up for success. If you have other people you're living with, letting them know well in advance that you have an interview, at 3:00 today. Do it in a quiet room, set up yourself for success. I think after the interview as well, do those typical things. Follow up with a thank you email. It really does make a good impression. And I think, reinvigorates that human connection, right? That we're kind of missing with the virtual piece.
Absolutely. Last question we have for you today. Just from your perspective in the recruiting world, do you like the virtual interview, or are there things you like, things maybe you don't like, or maybe even challenges that have come up as a recruiter?
Yeah, great question. So we actually sit here do a lot of virtual interviews already, and I think one of the benefits of it is that it provides a little bit more flexibility or equity in terms of people being able to take it again from home, from a comfortable space. Again, I think we are also a very people-focused organization, so again, there is a little bit of connection that can be lost, but I think there are other ways to reinforce that, whether it's with a background or just the conversations that you can have. It might feel a little more comfortable or casual. Again, take it seriously and do your best in answering those questions, but also know that both sides of the fence are adapting to new techniques, and so that also kind of equalizes the playing field, which I think can put you in a little more comfortable position.
Absolutely. Paul, thanks so much for your time today. We really appreciate you taking a few minutes to talk with us. And maybe we'll have you back again on a future episode.
That'd be great. Thanks so much, Joe.
Great. Thanks a lot. Take care. Thanks for watching our Career Connection series. If you'd like to further the conversation, please go ahead and do so through an appointment. You can schedule through your Handshake account by calling us at 978-542-6406. or by emailing us at career@salemstate.edu. Also, be sure to check out our resources on our website, salemstate.edu/careers, and we'll see you next time.